So welcome to part 5 of the playlist for Asteroids MMO, and I got my camera working. Just a few videos of not have my camera, not that there's anything to see here folks, but I just kind of like to put, when I'm watching videos, I like to see the face of the person speaking, so I thought I'd just drop myself in there down in the bottom corner. So hi to everyone. You'll remember in part 4 that we managed to I haven't opened up WebStorm, that we managed to start transferring data from functionality from the client and move it across to the server. So we got the Asteroids. So this, let's see, that's the server side, isn't it? This is the client side, and we got the Asteroids. Where are we? Forgotten where we did it. Authenticate, wasn't it? There. Oh no, server data, that's right, because we split it out into its own function and we managed to push them in there. So today what we're going to do, what we're going to try and do with those Asteroids is synchronize them across all browsers. So let me set this running. We can actually get rid of those console logs now, can't we? Let me just make sure that works. Yep, that's cool. Let me just tidy up some of these console logs. So we'll leave that connected one. Not really fussed for that one. And let's see, anything else? That was the Asteroids, wasn't it? Okay. So I think, yeah, so that's run again, and it's just put our socket ID on there. That's great. Okay, so in order to move the synchronization, I think we do need now to have the event loop on the server. I don't think there's anything more we can do without creating that event loop. And it's not actually as difficult as it sounds, to be honest, in JavaScript, because JavaScript already has mechanisms in place to do loops where things happen so many times. Now there's two ways we can do this. We could do, for example, let's say we've done the setup, and then we can just do while WHI while WHILE, yeah. So while I don't know, while true, and just run it as an infinite loop like that. And so what happens is, either way, when we first set up, we have to have a we'll call it delta time, and that's going to be, how do you get the current time? Equals, is it now? Equals date dot now. Oh, let delta equal. I think that's it. And then what you do is, inside the loop, you say, okay, const, actually we won't call that delta, we'll call that whoa, why is my keyboard stopped? There we go. We'll call that time stamp. And then what we'll do is say, right, const delta equals, let's see, it will be, timestamp is now, so delta is timestamp minus now. So obviously on the first iteration of this, it's going to be next to 0 because nothing's happened. But every time it goes through a loop, the amount it's changed by, we add on to the timestamp, and then that means that every time we get to the next iteration of the loop, delta is going to be the amount of time that's passed since that loop last run. So rather than assuming it's going to run so many times a second, we can actually calculate how much time has actually progressed. So then what happens at the end of the loop is we say timestamp equals actually, no, we don't put that at the end, we put that under there, don't we? So that we get the delta and then we immediately set the timestamp. So then this, runs a load of code. We come back round to delta. Timestamp was what the time was here before all this code run. So then the delta gets the difference and then we set the timestamp again to now. It's kind of a common loop. The other way of doing it is to use, so let's put that as option 1. And then the other way to do it is to use the setInterval method of JavaScript, which is built in. And then what we're going to do is say run a function every period of time. So let's say we call it heartbeat. And then for argument's sake, we'll just say every second. So setInterval heartbeat every second. And then what that means is we need a function called heartbeat. And again, we kind of know that the delta is going to be 1,000, but because things can go on in the server and because it's single threaded, it's never going to be exactly 1,000, and you've still got to kind of cater for that. So we can still do this. We can still do this. Let me just fix that. No. There. Okay. And then again, we can run our code there and yeah, that kind of ties in together with that one there. So either way, the advantage of this one is we can actually give it a rough idea as to how often to run that code, whereas with this one, it merely runs through the code and then just goes to the beginning again. So if the server gets kind of low, it could be running, if it gets like low activity, it could be running like lots more times than it needs to. If it gets high activity, obviously that'll scale up. I suppose you've still got the same problem with high activity with this one. It could easily go more than a second, or whatever time frame we decide to put on it. So let's, for now, most of the code inside is going to be the same for either. So what we'll do is I'll comment this one out and we'll just use the setInterval. And only because, because I feel like. Let's just see if this actually does what we want it to do. So if we do console log and let's output the delta. Okay. Okay, so it looks like, okay, so it's done it as a minus figure. So we want, of course, yeah, because timestamp's going to be less than date now, isn't it? Let's try that again. So there we go. So in milliseconds, we've got approximately a second, but can you see how it's just a slight fluctuation? Now, 1 or 2 milliseconds isn't really going to alter the game logic in any way to anything significant. But when there's lots of stuff going on in that loop, and we're going at much less than a second, it can make a difference. So for example, if I said we're actually going to do it, let's say 10 times a second. Now look at that. Not only well, no, not only, but the variation. We were looking at maybe 1 to 2 milliseconds. We're looking at 1 to 2 milliseconds here, but we're on an order of 1 less. So it's actually like almost 10 times the variant just by shortening the loop. The variance, I should say. Let's take it down to 100 times a second. And then again, we've multiplied by an order of 10. Again, 100 milliseconds is 100 times more than 1 millisecond. And yet that's the fluctuation here. So you can see how, as we're getting down to the more nitty-gritty constant update, the fluctuations can be quite significant. And that's why it's good to keep a track of that timestamp so that we don't lose too much. We factor that into anything that's time sensitive during that loop, and we just multiply it out by that. So that's why we've got that. Okay, so we can, let's comment out the console log. We don't want that running. Okay, so we've now got our event loop. I'm just trying to think now what we need to do. So if within our event loop, we need to tell the clients what's happened to the data. So well, what I'm really confused about is when we did this on the last video, oh, that's because we haven't reloaded, is it? Let's just reload that. Yeah, that's just got way locked up with about 1 million asteroids there. Let's see if our Safari one's not much better. Let's see if we can reload that. Oh, okay. So that reloads fine. Come on, Chrome. What's your problem? Come on, Chrome, what's your problem? Right, I tell you what, let's just cancel that. Tell you what, I seem to have a lot more issues with Chrome than other browsers recently. Okay. Okay, so that seems to be working again, and Safari is working again as well. But what I don't understand is the data, the initial data is there. Oh, no, I know. Because at the minute, the movement of the asteroids has been left to the browser, not the server. Ah, that's what it is. Okay, so what we need to do in this loop is calculate the movement of the asteroid. So how did we do it on the client? Let's have a looky here. We had this position, this dot position dot add this velocity. So this dot position was a vector, and this velocity was the the constant movement in the two axes was then every cycle was added to the current position as a vector. So you've got your line in that covers the 2 dimensions to a certain point. That was added to the vector, and then just added. So it looks like to do this manually, we're going to have to do a bit of Pythagoras, I'm afraid. So let's go into our asteroid class, and we'll do, well, we can copy this anyway. Okay, so what are we doing here? Well, the asteroid, the movement of the asteroid is determined already. So that is the vector, which we didn't assign here, did we? When we created the asteroid, we didn't assign a vector, or did we? You can't remember. Let me have a look here. Asteroids, here we go. So we create, oh no, that's where we assigned it to the client. Where did we build the asteroids? What am I missing here? Socket authenticate, socket down, setup. Oh, there, yeah. Okay, so we build the asteroids here. So we just did X, Y, and R. X, Y, and R, and we'd set no velocity here. So Where do we set the velocity? Inside the asteroid? I suppose so, because it's not really influenced by what's going on outside, is it? Not at the minute anyway, not with this version. So let's go this dot vx equals naught, this dot vy equals naught. Now, I tell you what, let's just put arbitrary figures in there. I want to get this to work on the client so it's the same. So Vx and Vy. So if we now go back to where we send that down to the client, so we can say X is now Vx and Y X is now Vx and Y is now Vy. Okay, so we send that down to the client. We now pick that up, server data, so we can say X, Y, let's do rocks A dot Vx rocks A dot Vy and then we'll have to change the asteroid signature, so it's where are we, XY Vx Vy, and then we can do so how did we do that originally? I've got rid of the original vector. It was another vector, wasn't it? Have I got any code knocking about I can use? I don't think I have. Right, let's have a stab in the dark on this one. So we'll say this, oh, it's there, this velocity. So it's create vector, and then we'll do Vx, Vy. Okay. Okay, let's see what that does. See if it even works. Chrome is not happy, is it? Whoa. Safari doing the same? Yep. Okay. I don't know. Let me slow that down a bit. 1. What did I put? 5. 5. Tell you what, Chrome's not happy here at all. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quit. And let's just do localhost again. Let me just check it's not at the same place. No, I don't think it is it? If I reload that halfway down. So now. No, pretty sure it's not. Anyway. So let's do 2. Let's do, say, 3 on that one, just to be a bit awkward. It's weird, isn't it? How it doesn't matter how many times I reload it. It seems to be at the same place. No, it's not. It's definitely not the same place. Okay. I'm not convinced now, actually, but anyway. So, let's see. So we've got our vector, so that's Vx. We've passed that to the client, and then when we move, we add the, we add that. Okay, cool. However, we need to do it on the server. It's more important to do it on the server than the client. The client's just to make it look smooth. The server is the important thing. So what we need to do is inside our loop, there we go, heartbeat. So we are going to update asteroid positions. Okay, so to do that, we need to loop over our asteroids. And then we need to run this move method here. Now, on the client, it just adds a vector to a vector. We can't do that here. So what we're going to do is I'll tell you what we do need is the delta. Come back to that in a moment. So what we're going to do is say this dot x plus equals this dot vx, this dot y plus equals this dot vy. So we're basically just adding the vector value back to the position value. And excuse me. So we'll come back to the delta in a minute. I just wanted to leave it. In fact, let me just take it out. But we do need that. Okay, so we're going to run this move method every iteration. So let's just do it 10 times a second for the minute, just to keep it steady. So we need to run actually that needs to be asteroids dot length a++, and then we say asteroids a dot move okay, because they're all moving together, it's kind of tricky to see what's happening here. So what I'm going to do is we had an arbitrary figure here, didn't we? So let's put that random in. So let's say math dot random multiplied by 2, and we'll say math dot random multiplied by 1 to keep it tidy. There we go. Okay, so yeah, so they're obviously curious as to why they're not all starting at 100, 100. Okay, what we'll do, let's go back to 2, and then let's, in the interval, let's log the asteroids dot how do you do it now? How do you get the map? That's it, isn't it? Map a dot x. Let's just have a look at a dot x for each of the asteroids. So if I bring up the console, so we've got 2 asteroids, and yeah, they're steadily going in a kind of increasing direction for both axes. Now, okay, I think what's happening there, if I now update the front end value of the asteroids. So let's see, where's the asteroids here? So move there. Let's just take out edge for a minute. So asteroids A, move. Yeah, so if we go to for each asteroid, so if we say console.log, in fact, basically we should just be able to copy that whole line. I think. So if we go to, let's do the Safari one. Not getting anything in the console, am I? So for each A equals naught, A is less than asteroids.length, A++. Is there anything in Chrome there? Oh, there we go. Undefined, undefined. Okay. So let's just map out A. What are we looking at here? Asteroid, asteroid. Oh, there is no X because it's position.x, isn't it? So A dot position.x. There we go. Now, right, okay. So this is where delta comes in. You see, we've run this at 10 times a second, whereas I believe this runs at something like 30 times a second on the P5 default. Now we can kind of mimic this. So what we can say is, on the setup, I believe we can do something like frames, and I think we can do 10. I think, is that how it works? Frames is not a function, no. It's a frame rate. Yeah. So this is now 10 times a second. Now, what we can do is say for asteroids.show, it will be a little bit cheeky here. If we say this.x, I'm not sure if it thinks it's a number, so I'll just concatenate it to a string there. There we go. We've got something, and it's undefined because it's this.position.x. So this.position.x. There we go. So this is going to be interesting. Let me pull this across, and then let's shrink him down a bit. Okay, so let's reload that. So looking at these numbers, 280, 290, 310, 320, 30, 40. They are kind of similar, aren't they? 430, 430, right. But that's a coincidence at the minute. That's just because we're running both the server and the client at 10 times a second and doing the same increment. But in actual fact, they are now technically out of sync because the one does not know what the other is. And if for whatever reason one of them slows down because of load or whatever, they will lose sync as it is. So the idea is there's two ways of doing this. Number one is you you try and match the delta time, but there's always the risk that it's going to go out of sync. So the second one is that you just update the browser like every tenth of a second with the latest coordinates, and then you know that every browser's got the latest coordinates. And then, you can run the browser still at 30 times a second at the same, it's still got the same vector. So for the asteroids at least, it can smooth it out, but you're still giving it that bit of an update 10 times a second. So let's try that. Okay, so we asteroids.move, and then we want to we want to do what we did before, which is kind of put it inside an asteroid data thing and then emit it to the client. So if we do that, asteroids.move, let asteroids data equals an empty array. Asteroids data, so we move the asteroids, then we push the data into the array, and then we need to pass that down to the client. Now, so what we can do, rather than just send it to each client, because we're in a loop now, so we don't have the individual client data. So what we can do is say, we'll emit to all clients, and we'll call the server data endpoint again. And what did we pass in last time? It was just asteroids, wasn't it? We do need to refactor that to accommodate things like shots and other players eventually. But for now, we're just going to send the asteroid data. So theoretically now, create vector is not defined. Okay. What we will need to do on the client actually is just clear out when server data, or can we, can we uniquely identify the asteroids so that we don't have to clear the data, we can just update the data? That might be better, mightn't it? If we give each asteroid a UUID. So let's do that here. So we'll say UUID equals UUID v4, and let's copy that again. Oh no, because it's UUID is it's not UID4 now, is it? It's asteroids asteroids a dot UUID, and comma that, and let's put a UUID there, and we'll say UUID there. Let's go and put that back into the initial asteroids, which is in the setup. Is it in the setup function? I believe it is. Yeah, there we go. So so we need to set the UUID here actually, not here. So so yeah, in actual fact, that needs to go there, and then this one is UUIDV for, that's the one, and then the radius. Okay, so that passes the UUID in down to the client. So now in the client, when we get the asteroids, there we go, server data. So we XY, so the new asteroid, so we need to put UUID in there, don't we? So XY, VX, VY, and then if we say this dot UUID equals UUID, and we'll put that in here, UUID. Okay, so so that's rocks a dot UUID. So that's it. So that's that data transferred from the server to the client. So now when server data is run, rather than just doing push, let's see, we can check if that asteroid exists first of all. So we can say asteroids dot filter a. Let's do AST here, where AST dot UUID equals rocks a dot UUID. We just want one of that, so let existing asteroid equals that. Then we can say if existing asteroid will update it, otherwise we'll just do what we did before, is push a new asteroid on. So if it's an existing asteroid, then what we need to do is say, oh no, it's the index, isn't it? I'm happy with what I've done, but it obviously doesn't like it, so can I say properties of undefined setting X, and that is on sketch 98, so that's this one. So it doesn't like this asteroids, so we need to find out what that is really. So console.log existing index, let's see if that pops up in the console, -1. So it's saying it can't find, it doesn't equal -1. Now, if I bring up, theoretically, these should be where the other ones are. I think that's it. I think we've done it. Let me just get rid of some of these consoles. Okay, so create vector is not defined. Okay. Now the noise is different. So I've left each asteroid to define its own noise. So that's obviously something that needs looking at. But if we pull these down, why is this still outputting a log? I thought I'd cancelled that. Is that in the loop? Okay. Let's try again. Okay, so I can still move about, obviously. So, yeah, if I line that up that way, then no matter how many times I load this, the noise will change, as in the shape of the asteroid. But the actual position is the same because it's synchronized with the server. So that's it. We've done it. We've managed to synchronize the asteroids to actually use the server position and not its own recommendation. Now, let's just up the frame rate a little bit here now, just to make it a little bit smoother. We still need to implement the Delta update, but we might do that in the next video because I think we've done quite a lot here. So if we up the frame rate to 20, there we go. It looks a bit smoother, doesn't it? Still need to speed up the ship. Now, obviously, the ship isn't updated its position, so we'll have to do that at some point. But as far as the asteroids are concerned, yeah, I think we're on a win there. So we'll end this video a bit longer than I wanted it to be, but thank you for following along. So in our next video, we'll try and implement that Delta and then perhaps look at the player, doing a similar thing with the player or perhaps with the shots. I don't know, the shots will probably be easier. But either way, we'll obviously make progress. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all the support you give and any comments you want to give. I know some of you will be screaming at the screen saying there's a better way of doing it, there's a more efficient way, and please tell me what it is. Node.js is not my first language as a programming language. I've only recently picked it up, so this is relatively new to me. So yeah, anything you can suggest to make this work better, I'm completely on board with that, so please let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe as always if you like this, if you're interested in this kind of development. I have other playlists as well, so have a browse through, see if there's anything that takes your fancy. But for now, thanks very much for watching. See you in the next video.